All right, everyone, I have some critical updates to share because what's happening in the Warner offices right now isn't just a simple corporate procedure. It's a total power restructuring that will define the next decade of the Monsterverse. To kick things off, today we're dissecting several high-stakes fronts. First, the War of Titans for the control of Warner, centered on a massive vote involving nearly $111 billion. This March 20th, 2026, will basically decide if Godzilla remains the crown jewel of cinema or becomes mere mass-produced content for an algorithm like Netflix. We'll also talk about the artistic reboot and those red-hot rumors claiming the Monsterverse is permanently ditching the neon aesthetic to return to its roots. This confirms a return to the seriousness and the true weight of the forces of nature. No more light WWE-style choreography, just the terror of the colossal and the scale we lost along the way. We also can't forget the Toho factor and the so-called deal of the century, a masterstroke by Japan to secure absolute control over elite merchandising before the imminent sale of Warner. Additionally, we have exclusive details on the new Apple TV series, tentatively titled Red Monarch, a Cold War espionage thriller set in 1984 that promises to expand the lore in ways you can't imagine. And, of course, we'll close with the smoking gun, new evidence in the Writers Guild of America legal documents that adds another massive brick to the confirmation of SpaceGodzilla on the big screen. We're analyzing all of this in depth today. So, without further delay, let's begin. Starting off, we have to analyze what seems to be a seismic shift in the industry, as Legendary has detected a critical failure in the Monsterverse's operating system. After the psychedelic, color-saturated explosion of the new empire, leadership seemingly realized the franchise was just a millimeter away from becoming a caricature of itself. Multiple insiders claim the sense of scale and that real threat that blew our minds back in early 24 has been lost. That's why for Supernova, they've decided to move the pieces on the board to recover the grit and seriousness that defines the brand. Because of this, the return of Dave Callahan is a high-caliber move. Legendary brought back the man who wrote the original draft for the 2014 Godzilla to lead the script for Godzilla x Kong Supernova. But this time, he's working under a strict directive. Focus on realism to reconnect with that sense of pure terror and magnitude, where monsters stop being choreographed wrestlers and return to being unpredictable, terrifying forces of nature. This is perfectly complemented by the hiring of director Grant Sputor, the visionary behind I Am Mother. They're looking for a total visual overhaul, saying a technically permanent goodbye to the neon synthwave look and entering a tense, dark, and meticulous atmosphere that brings back the dirty, tangible realism we've all been missing. Finally, the masterstroke lies in the division of frequencies between film and television. The big screen is reserved for massive spectacle and visual impact, while Apple TV's Monarch handles the deep lore expansion and human drama, achieving a pure narrative efficiency that doesn't clutter the main theatrical experience. Now let's look at an extra detail that reinforces this Apple TV expansion strategy, as details have leaked regarding a new series tentatively titled Red Monarch. This production is set in 1984, at the height of the Cold War, and brings back a young Colonel Lee Shaw, played once again by Wyatt Russell, who is sent on a top-secret mission behind the Iron Curtain in the Soviet Union. The interesting part here is the genre shift. The series is described as a pure espionage thriller in the style of James Bond. Shaw's mission is to stop the Soviets before they unleash a massive new Titan that could change the course of the war and destroy parts of the United States. The name Red Monarch isn't a coincidence. It supposedly comes from an Apex file folder we already saw in the first season of Monarch Legacy of Monsters. Everything points to a Soviet organization dedicated to weaponizing Titans for political ends, functioning as the dark counterpart to Monarch. Regarding the monsters, while there's no official confirmation, the lore suggests three powerful candidates: Tiamat, due to her conflicts with Russian submarines in the 80s, Amalek, who hibernates in Siberia during that era, and of course, Godzilla himself might appear to fill in the blanks regarding his activities during that decade. The production is in the hands of showrunner Joby Harrell, responsible for Transformers: Rise of the Beasts, with filming scheduled to begin in July 2026 across locations in the UK and Prague. It's vital to understand who's truly in charge here, because there's a lot of confusion. I have to clarify, while Warner is dragging massive debts that often suffocate its big franchises, Legendary is the true financial shield of the MonsterVerse. They're the ones providing the bulk of the capital and assuming the primary risk for every production, which automatically grants them God mode over creative control. In this dynamic, Warner acts mainly as the logistics and distribution arm. This is no small thing. It's a master move that allows Legendary to be much more daring and expand to every corner of the globe. But the tone and the decisions of the films remain pure because they don't depend on a Warner finance committee demanding absurd changes or creative cuts just to plug their own fiscal holes. Therefore, the director's vision is protected by a wall of private capital, making the artistic future of Godzilla and Kong more independent and solid than it has been in nearly a decade.
I have something very interesting to tell you because multiple insiders in Japan claim that Toho smelled blood. Warner's goal was to keep its stock value as high as possible before the potential sale, and Toho didn't hesitate to use that urgency to impose conditions that were previously unthinkable. Insiders describe this as a masterful move of strategic pressure. Warner desperately needed the SpaceGodzilla name to make its catalog look more attractive to Paramount, which forced Legendary to accept historic terms to secure the character rights. This leads us to the real spoils of war, the massive merchandising expansion that Toho officially announced for 2026, which is tied directly to the designs debuting in this latest film. Toho has ensured that all elite merchandising based on figures and collectibles coming from the movie will be an exclusive license for them in Japan, securing record profits without competition. The brilliance here is that it doesn't matter if they go with a classic SpaceGodzilla or a new evolution of the character. Any version appearing on screen guarantees nearly absolute profits for Toho. But the final blow comes from rumors suggesting they negotiated a percentage of the global box office so high that it changes the rules of the game forever. Toho is no longer just a strategic partner. They've become the true architect of profit within the MonsterVerse. We closed this analysis with the definitive legal data, the silver bullet that confirms everything we've discussed isn't just fan theory, it's a top-tier corporate reality. What makes this point so electrifying is that until recently, the main antagonist was kept in a gray zone. There was enough ambiguity to make us doubt whether we'd see an original villain or a Toho legend. However, the board has shifted decisively. Despite the logical production adjustments made in recent weeks for Supernova, the official Sindicato de Escritores de América, the WGA registry, has been updated to become the immovable backbone of this project. This document is vital because it legally credits the story as being specifically based on the characters of Godzilla and SpaceGodzilla, both intellectual properties of Toho. Since this is an official credit registry, it stops being a statement of intent and becomes a legal binding fact that Warner must respect by contract. SpaceGodzilla is no longer an internet myth. He is officially the central axis upon which the entire future of the MonsterVerse is being built. To wrap things up, everyone, it's fundamental to stay grounded. In this industry, nothing's 100% final until we see the credits roll on the screen. Even though Warner and Legendary have the legal permits and have paid astronomical sums for the SpaceGodzilla rights, it doesn't guarantee we'll see him physically in the next movie. In fact, my personal belief is that this Titan will pull the strings from the shadows, acting as a cosmic puppet master rather than an immediate frontal antagonist. I insist that the SpaceGodzilla event is so massive and devastating that the smartest move would be to split it into two-movie narrative. We'd see a similar antagonist or a herald preparing the ground, while SpaceGodzilla manipulates the story until we get the visual confirmation of his arrival in the finale. A mega event of this magnitude would be a lethal show of force for the franchise, marking a before and after, and finally allowing the MonsterVerse to deliver an epic conclusion before taking a break to reorganize. At the end of the day, the MonsterVerse is recalibrating to survive the biggest merger in history between Warner, Paramount, or Netflix. Whatever the outcome of the vote, Legendary has already shielded the project and ensured that Godzilla is a piece too big to fall. But what do you think? Is a two-movie approach and the return to the serious tone of 2014 what the franchise needs to survive this financial transition? Let me know in the comments. I'm Cyber, and this is CyberZone. See you in the next video.